Just about sailing, the fifth part of the journey. This time going from, well, leaving Padstow, spent a lovely time in Padstow, and going off to anchor up in St Ives, on East St Ives, prior to going round to Land's End. So quick mention for Freeman Sails, because they sorted out my batten. They actually made one up for me and said, look, take this, have a go with it, and if it doesn't work then we won't charge you for it. It did work fine. I came back. By the way, these guys, they make all the sails for the Cornish crabber, Cornish shrimper and so on boats, and this is what it's like in Padstow. You're kind of moored up right in the middle of the town, which is, it is a lovely town. But it is quite strange, and it was a very touristy time because it was the Easter holidays. So you've got people, the kids were sort of trying to catch crabs with nets and strings and all sorts of things all week. And the whole of the town is kind of centred around the inner harbour. Right, this is high tide in Padstow, and it's just a little bit weird because it feels like you've just kind of parked your boat right at the side of the road. You can just step off. And there are the shops.
And if I cannot kick his dog, then I don't give to the busker. He's talentless and lazy, he's ruining the country. I think he should get a job. Instead I give my money to Walmart for his tax evasion, Primark for his child labour, Texaco for the next invasion. Don't give about you, give my money to the millionaires. I give my money to the millionaires. I give all my money to the millionaires. Don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah, well, the West is very famous for lots of vibrant roots music. Lots going on in Padstow the whole time, but I did spend over a week there. Now it's time to go. Got to wait for the gate to come down, and I didn't do a time lapse because it wasn't steady enough, but this gate is amazing. You wouldn't want to be standing on it when it comes down, would you? So overnight, a huge, great big Swiss boat, sort of 50-foot boat, came in front of me, so I needed to sort of push off that day. Swiss is unusual. I mean, Switzerland's not exactly renowned for its shoreline, is it? But anyway, I was getting ready. I was just going to give the nose of the boat a shove off, and none of us like the fact that as soon as you do anything on a boat in a harbour like this, everybody watches. So I was ignoring people. So yeah, I was just about to give a sort of a shove off with my foot when I noticed that the Swiss were actually doing it properly with a spring. So I quickly set up a spring and then grabbed the camera. So you can see that the lines are actually around the ladder there, and I'm motoring backwards with a fender on the back, so it pushes the nose out. They're doing the same, except they're doing it from the top of the quay, and I think they were doing it as a training exercise because it seemed to take them ages to kind of set it up. So I thought, well, I can't just give the nose a shove off with my foot because people will be watching and say, well, that's not proper, is it? So as soon as they'd gone out, you just literally put the boat in forward. It couldn't be simpler. Make sure you pull the lines in pretty quickly because a bit of the line does trail in the water, and you don't want to get a problem around the propeller. So this was it, leaving Padstow, and I thought I'd just follow the lovely Swiss boat straight out. And then they stopped. And worse than that, they started to reverse. So I wasn't quite sure what was going on. So I kind of made a few, the sort of universal hand gestures for, excuse me, dear chap, but what's actually going on here? And the captain very kindly just kind of waved me through, and they were either going to practice again or they'd left a member of crew on board or something, so I motored out before them. Either that or they wanted to give me a head start and a race. And I did meet up with them again, or I did see them again later. So Padstow, I cannot recommend it highly enough. A lovely, lovely place. It's a fantastic, friendly harbour, lovely place to stay. People do tend to use it as a bit of a stopover on the way round from or to Land's End, but stay there. There's loads to do. There's walks, there's the Lobster Fisheries Museum, there's about 1 million different Rickstein restaurants, including the original one, and it's just a delight. I'm not going to show footage of going out through the pilotage, etc., because I covered that an awful lot in the last one, even though it was in the dark, but it's fairly straightforward. So goodbye to Padstow. I would love to go back there someday. So leaving Padstow, that was a lovely stop over. That's kind of the entrance. Don't know if you can see, there should be a tiny dot at the top there, which is Stepper Point, and then lots of rocks and things, and the kettle's boiling. So here's the Swiss boat again, beautifully set up, sailing on a slightly different point of wind to me, and I think they were probably going over to Wales, probably to Tenby, somewhere like that, with their cruising chute up, and they absolutely whizzed off. Lovely, lovely boat. Right, probably can't see them, but the Swiss guys have kind of disappeared off onto the horizon now, which is not surprising, because let's be honest, they're used to sort of sailing up and down mountains and things, aren't they? Right, it's absolutely delightful again, so I thought I'd just give a quick look at what I use for my basic navigation and instruments. First of all, obviously there's wind speed and direction, so 9.1 knots coming from about there. Through the water we're doing about 1.8 knots. I then have this low rants, and at the moment that was what I was aiming for. The wind carries me more comfortably down to here, so I'm actually going to go about here before I turn down. So that was my second offing. I normally use this in navigation mode, which gives you all sorts of information about particularly the closing speed. So the moment I've gone past, so I'm minus two knots. Then the wonderful navionics system, so you can see I've come out of Padstow pretty much the way that I did before. Changed my mind about what I was doing, because I wanted to get the sails up, so I'm sailing down here, and when I get to about this point I'm going to turn down there. And then what I also have on my table, which is just, it's not really a chart table, is I have my passage planned for the day, and I like to have a drawing. So this is Padstow, where I set off from. I actually write the waypoints out in full unless they're already stored, and the next one, there's a little skull and crossbones there. This is where I'm heading down to, St Ives. I put the relevant tide times and the set of the the set of the tide for roughly about where I'm going to be as I go down the passage. Not massive, to be quite honest. And the wind, and it's 1 o'clock, so we should be on about 7 knots of wind, which is not too bad, and it's coming down here. And then I've got the chart, so I'm heading down to in St Ives. In fact, I've got all of these, and they sort of keep them underneath here, and I've got my currents and tidal streams and things, and then I have a pilot guide. Oh well, guess what we're doing again. The wind is just a little bit too light and a little bit too fluky, so I'm not going to bore you with lots of this. On the plus side for me though, there is some lovely, lovely, lovely coastline for me to look at. Right, so here is the Stones cardinal marker, so you need to stick north of this. And between here and the shore, which is there, I think you can probably see there's some stuff sticking out and some just below the water, so this is a definite stay there. I'll show an insert from a chart, and this is my waypoint, which is why the alarm is going off. So here we are in lovely Carbis Bay, right next to St Ives. I popped in here because I thought it might be a little bit more sheltered. It's a bit further in, and St Ives does have a reputation for being a bit rolly. At the moment this is a sort of lee-ish shore, although the wind is turning around as we speak, and it's not too bad, and the winds are due to be going down and coming more from off the land, so which is a shame because I've got to be up really early tomorrow to do the next big leg, which is to go around Land's End. Now, I didn't do much videoing today because, to be quite honest, it was mostly motoring. It was a lovely motor, and it's the North Cornish coastline is lovely to see. I didn't video much of that because it's very difficult to video it from the boat, but and Land's End is going to be spectacular, but there's almost no winds again tomorrow, so I might be motoring around. So anyway, I'm going to have a cup of tea now. And I'm going to cook myself some food, so for the moment that's it from just about motoring almost all the time. Oh well. Yeah, bouncy night all night, except for the very early part where the wind changed direction. Sorry, this is the anchor monitor chart. And now look at it. Looks like butter wouldn't melt in its flipping mouth. Oh. Who agreed to this early morning? I hate mornings. Anyway. Off round Land's End, and let's get off to Newlyn. And there we have it. The next part of the journey is probably the one I was looking forward to both the most and the least, which is getting round Land's End, and then it's kind of travelling east all the way. So that's it. You can switch off now. See you next time. Right, everybody gone? Good, because this is slightly embarrassing and I don't really want anybody to watch it, but this is what happened with the demise of the GoPro. Right, so the dolphins are still here, so I'm not going to have the quiet day that I hoped for, but I'm getting a bit peckish, so here's a bag of rice. But it's not to eat. I don't know if you know, but GoPros come with two different backs. There's the non-waterproof back and the waterproof back. Looks all sealed in the bag. And I forgot to check. I wanted to get one of those underwater with dolphin shots, and I've got another camera which I did actually use. Don't know whether they came out or not, we'll see in a second. So unfortunately the GoPro got a full dunking in salt water. Now I don't know whether to rinse it out in cold water, if that'll make it worse. Yeah, dolphin, very funny, you can go away now. Or not, but I'm going to stick this in a bag of rice. Should I dunk it in cold water, in fresh water first? Because it really got a good dunking, so I'm not going to do it any worse. Oh, I don't know. I'm just going to stick it in a bag of rice and see what happens. That's supposed to get the moisture out, isn't it? I think this is an ex-GoPro.